Just a little under a year ago, DC Comics kicked off its Absolute Universe line with the release of Absolute Batman #1, with Absolute Superman and Wonder Woman #1 following shortly thereafter. And now, not only do we have those three titles, we also have Absolute Green Lantern, Absolute Flash, and Absolute Martian Manhunter. And with us fast approaching the anniversary of Absolute Batman #1, let's sit down and talk about the Absolute Universe, how it started, where it's at right now, and how you can get into it right now.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Now, before we go into these books, keep in mind there will be a link in the description, and I will even try and remember to put one in the pinned comment below, where you can go to globalcomics.com and you can check out all of these titles on the Global Comics app or website. And you can also, if you want to, you can also read all the other titles. They have like literally over 100,000 some odd comics, ranging from not just DC Comics, but also multiple other imprints like Image and Boom Studios, Dark Horse, Dynamite, so on and so forth. Use the link in the description or use my promo code GCX Blerd Without Fear. You can get your first 1-year unlimited subscription for $59.99. But anyway, let's talk about these Absolute books. Okay, so the Absolute Universe was something that kicked into gear just shortly after the events of Absolute Power, which was a major DC Comics crossover event where all of Earth's heroes were framed into having suddenly broken bad by Amanda Waller. And she used Amazo technology to steal all of Earth's heroes' powers and use those very same Amazos to replace the Justice League. Ultimately, what winds up happening is that Amanda Waller is found out, it is revealed her treachery, the Amazos are defeated, and all of their powers go back to all the respective heroes. But in the midst of all that, the Justice League decided, you know what, we need one big bad Justice League now. The Justice League Unlimited is brought into DC Comics continuity, and the Justice League is now bigger than ever before. But while all this is going on, Darkseid is doing his thing, and Darkseid has decided that the only way for Darkseid to obtain absolute power in his particular circumstances is to no longer just simply be. You know, the old saying is that Darkseid is. Well, what happens when Darkseid isn't? What ultimately happens is that Darkseid throws himself into a combat situation with the Justice League Unlimited, and he gets wrecked. Basically, Darkseid was going on what was effectively a Thanos quest. We see him taking on his own family, we see him taking on Eclipso, we even see him becoming possessed by the Spectre in the midst of all this before facing off with the Justice League Unlimited. And when they kill him, which mind you, Darkseid is actually allowing himself to be destroyed, even though he is so powerful that they shouldn't be able to destroy him, in his death, he is reborn. And because of this rebirth, he gets to start everything over. And he ends up crafting his own universe, the Absolute Universe. And it's here where all of the stories we're about to talk about take place. This is a dark timeline that is shaped by Darkseid to be the type of world that he wants it to be, to not have all the heroes that exist in the Prime Earth continuity. Hence, why a lot of the characters that we see in the Absolute Universe currently are few and far between. When we kick off with Absolute Batman, which is arguably the most similar title to what you would get from Prime Earth continuity Batman, even then, it's still incredibly different, because imagine a world where Batman isn't a billionaire. Batman is broke. Well, he's not really broke. I mean, the guy's living out of a brownstone. So, I mean, really, if you're living in a brownstone in Gotham City, how broke can you be? But that's another story altogether. Point is that he's not a billionaire. Thomas and Martha Wayne are not, living in Wayne Manor, on the outskirts of Gotham, and all that other crazy stuff. No, Thomas Wayne wasn't a doctor. What is effectively a very similar origin to Batman proper, where he loses his parents in Crime Alley, you get something a little bit different. His parents are still the subject of gun violence, or rather, only one of them is, and that's Thomas Wayne. This is a world where Martha Wayne is still alive and well, and Bruce lost Thomas during a school field trip where an active shooter showed up, Joe Chill, to the surprise of no one, and Thomas sacrificed himself to protect not only Bruce, but his other students. And this is how we wind up getting Bruce Wayne, who becomes obsessed with getting vengeance for the death of his father, for crime in Gotham, and all that stuff. This is a far more brutal and savage Batman than anything we have ever seen before. This is a Batman who is also the largest Batman we have ever seen before. This guy literally walks around at 6'9", 421 pounds. To put it in perspective for you, he basically walks around at the same height and weight as Prime Earth continuity Bane on the juice. Not only is this Batman bigger and badder, his entire costume is a weapon. He has spikes on his shoulder, spikes that can come off, mind you, and even the bat ears that he is known for, those can be taken off and used as weapons, and even in some cases fired at people. His cape actually functions like bat wings. He can use them to, the ends of them to walk around, to grab onto things. He can even use them to glide if he so chooses, and even his bat symbol is a weapon. Yeah, the same goofy bat symbol that everybody was making fun of when the Absolute Universe Batman was first announced. Well, guess what? Nobody's laughing anymore, because that thing can be taken off and wielded like an axe. Not only that, this is an even more interesting Batman when you think about the fact that he doesn't have all the same villains that we would normally see him have. Yes, he does encounter characters like Bane and Mr. Freeze and Black Mask, but some of the characters that you would be used to seeing as villains are not all villains in this universe. Technically, Joker is still around, but we're still figuring out. Even, I think at the time I'm recording this, Absolute Batman number 11 has not too terribly long come out, and I have a video for that coming out soon. Joker is largely been in the background, and he's not the Clown Prince of Gotham like you would imagine. He's actually more like what Bruce Wayne probably could be if he decided to use his money for unscrupulous purposes. He is a billionaire, playboy philanthropist in this universe, where Bruce is not. But yes, all the other villains, characters like Penguin, Riddler, Two-Face, Killer Croc, Catwoman, they're not villains in this universe, at least not yet. They're Bruce's childhood friends. Yes, he grew up with these people. They are his buddies. They hang out. They play poker together. They also train and hang out and go drinking and all sorts of other stuff together. And while yes, their personalities are all still for the most part intact, they're not bad guys here. For the most part, well, except for one of them, they're all normal. It's kind of wild how that is set up. And also, Alfred Pennyworth is not Alfred Pennyworth in this universe, at least not the Alfred we're used to seeing. Alfred in this universe is an international man of mystery, and he is not Batman's butler. Next up is gonna be Absolute Superman. Absolute Superman is probably, I would say after Batman, the next in terms of being the closest to what you might expect in Prime Earth continuity. So imagine if Superman did not have Superman's origin, but Supergirl's origin, or at least something closer to it. In the Absolute Universe, Superman is not shot off from Krypton as it's being blown up to come to Earth when he is a baby, like literally having just recently been born. In this universe, he actually got to grow up on Krypton. He's not necessarily a teenager, but he's about roughly like almost preteen age by the time of Krypton's destruction. And we get to spend a pretty good chunk of time on Krypton to get to know what this world was like. Kal-El is old enough to be very familiar that Krypton is a very backwards world. It works off of a caste system, where you have things like the Science League, the ruling class of Krypton. Whereas there's also another league, or not league, it actually referred to as a guild called the Labor Guild. And this was very much a commentary on the top 1% versus everybody else. And it's also a treatise on why artificial intelligence and being heavily reliant on it is bad. This is a Krypton that is fully reliant on artificial intelligence, even down to the school system, where there's points where Kal-El is supposed to turn in a school project or paper, and he is chastised for turning in a paper that was not created by artificial intelligence. Like, basically they said, hey, look, you are only allowed to turn in ChatGPT papers. That's it. You can't turn in anything that is original or innovative. As a matter of fact, original and innovative thought is punished, which is why Clark's parents on Krypton, they are actually kicked out of their respective guilds or barred from joining the guilds they would have been a part of. Both Jor-El and Lara, they would have been in the Science League, but because of the fact that they either A, try to be innovative and encourage scientific innovation at that, like space exploration. In the case of Lara, she was barred from ever joining the Science League, and Jor-El, because he tried to warn the Science League about the impending doom of Krypton, he was kicked down to the Labor Guild for that. Clark basically lives in a Kryptonian version of the movie Don't Look Up, because the Science Guild, they know that Krypton is dying, but they don't want anyone else to know about it, and they're all just kind of waiting for it to happen, and they can do whatever it is they want to do, while the bottom 99% aren't allowed to do anything about it. This is how we wind up getting Kal-El going from Krypton to Earth. And Kal-El, for the most part, his powers very much the same stuff you would probably expect. He has superhuman strength, durability. He is also capable of doing his heat vision and super breath and all that other stuff that we associate with Clark Kent. But the thing that is actually very different about him this time around is his cape. Superman wears not only a cape, but he also technically wears Kryptonian armor, something that was specifically made by his mother, Lara-El. And the armor, just like everything else on Krypton, houses an artificial intelligence within it that acts as a companion and assistant, more or less. Think of Superman's armor and cape as effectively a smartwatch. Another thing that's kind of different here is that, well, yes, Superman is powered by Earth's yellow sun, it's his cape and the armor that actually helps him absorb Earth's yellow sun, because for all intents and purposes, Superman is like a phone battery. He has to be recharged ever so often, and his suit allows him to be able to do that. But once he uses up all of that energy, well, he has to take a moment to recharge himself. And he also still has the same weaknesses to both kryptonite and magic in this universe. Now, another thing that's very interesting about this book is that, you think about Superman, what is one of the main characters people will always associate with him? Well, that's going to be Lois Lane. And in this universe, Lois is not a journalist. She is a part of a paramilitary unit of a corporation referred to as Lazarus. And Lazarus is basically a replacement for LexCorp in this universe. But instead of having Lex Luthor at the helm, it's actually Ra's al Ghul. And it's a Ra's al Ghul that's a little bit different than what you might be used to. Yes, he still kind of has that ominousness about him that you would expect from Al Ghul in Prime Earth continuity. However, he is way more of a badass in this universe than you might expect. It's almost as if Ra's al Ghul and Lex Luthor did the fusion dance and just became one character. That's basically what it kind of feels like. And there's also, within Lazarus Corp, there is Brainiac, but this is a very mostly different Brainiac than what you might be familiar with. But I think the whole thing with Brainiac is pretty interesting, but I feel like that's one of those, you kind of want to figure out what's going on with him. You kind of want to figure that out for yourself. To kind of get you up to speed with why Lois is not a journalist is because a lot of the same things that plagued Krypton, like heavy reliance on artificial intelligence, because Brainiac is tied to Lazarus Corp and he is from that same realm, Lazarus is also heavily dependent on AI. And Lois, while not a journalist in this universe, when she tries to give an after-action report about Superman after her first encounter with him, Lazarus, or more specifically, Brainiac, keeps trying to rewrite her report to say something different than what she intended to say. This is what drives her to kind of turn into an investigative journalist, not like on an official capacity, but she almost kind of turns into more of a detective than she does anything else. And while yes, DC Comics initially promoted Absolute Superman as being completely devoid of a Ma and Pa Kent, Ma and Pa Kent are actually there. They're just not meeting Superman on the same playing field as what they originally did in Prime Earth continuity, as opposed to them finding Superman when he was a baby in the middle of a cornfield. They're meeting him when he's already damn near good and grown, and not really having as tremendous of an amount of impact on his upbringing and his life. He doesn't spend anywhere near as much time with them as he did in Prime Earth continuity. The time that he would have spent around Ma and Pa Kent in Prime Earth continuity, he spent the majority of that time with his actual birth parents on Krypton. So you're getting a Superman who has a slightly different set of values, but those values are still within the same ballpark. Now let's jump over to Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is probably one of the more different takes on a DC comic superhero in the Absolute Universe, because in this case, Wonder Woman as we know her, having been forged from clay and blessed by the gods, and unlike Prime Earth continuity, we don't really exactly know how Diana was created in this universe, but what we do know is that the gods fear her. And they are absolutely positively terrified of her existence, and they are not particularly fond of the existence of Amazons. So Diana, instead of being raised on Themyscira, or otherwise Paradise Island, she is raised in actual hell. Yes, hell. And not only is she raised in hell, but she's raised by the most unlikely person you would imagine. A woman who is normally in Prime Earth continuity one of her greatest foes, Cersei. In this universe, as opposed to being almost more like an Amazonian sister to Diana, in this universe, Cersei is more of a surrogate mother. An adopted mother, if you really want to get technical about it, and Cersei is responsible for everything that Diana knows about magic and how to fight and how to protect herself and a great many other things. Not only that, but with a Diana who is far more versed in magic than even Prime Earth continuity Wonder Woman typically is, this is also a Wonder Woman who is walking around at all times in the tribal chief drip. When Diana hits a scene, you may as well just bend the knee and acknowledge her. Not only that, she is also gifted with a lasso, though this time not a lasso of truth, but a lasso that effectively works like a Ghost Rider's penance dare. When someone is wrapped up within her nemesis rope, she can make them feel all the pain and suffering that they have caused to others while they're entangled in it. Not only that, she has what is effectively a berserk sword. It's kind of crazy, how all of this works. It's fantastic, and I love it. And all of these things that make her seem like an absolute badass. There's one thing about Wonder Woman in this universe that is still intact. She is super nice. Like, she's the nicest person. Very similar to how we associate with Wonder Woman in Prime Earth continuity. Diana's literally just the most sweet, compassionate, and loving person. She rarely encounters someone that she does not like. And in this universe, it's the same. Maybe almost a little more so than what we might be used to. Now, that said, what about the people who Wonder Woman typically surrounds herself with? Where's Steve Trevor? Steve Trevor exists in this universe, and they meet under very similar circumstances, only instead of Steve Trevor washing up on Paradise Isle and Diana meeting him for the first time there, she meets him when he effectively gets killed in action and winds up in hell because of all the bad things that he did being a dog of the military. You get away from that, it's okay, well, what about other characters like Etta Candy or Barbara Ann Minerva, aka Cheetah? Those characters are also present in this universe. And there's also other characters that show up like Dr. Poison. You even see characters like Hades pop up a time or two in this book. But yeah, for the most part, everything else is as it should be, more or less. In this universe, Wonder Woman is just trying to find her way in it. She spent her entire life living in hell, and now she wants to get out and do the most good humanly possible, which is probably the most Wonder Woman thing that anyone could ever do. These next three are gonna be pretty quick because they don't have half as many issues out as what we've gotten from some of the other stuff. Now, let's start with Absolute Green Lantern. Lantern. I actually just recently did a video about Absolute Green Lantern, and I'll try to remember to link it up here somewhere. But Absolute Green Lantern presents us with a very unique situation. What if Hal Jordan, instead of being Green Lantern, was the Black Hand? And what if John Stewart, as opposed to being a Green Lantern, was a Yellow Lantern? And we also have a third character, a more recently introduced character by the name of Joe Mullen, who is a more recent character who was introduced in 2019 in the comic book series Far Sector. Joe Mullen is the Green Lantern of this universe. And she's also a Green Lantern who is unique in that there's a status quo for all of the Lantern Corps, and very similar to New Earth continuity, and even, I guess, technically Prime Earth continuity up to a point, Green Lanterns used to have the weakness of yellow. Anything yellow could disrupt their power, and in the Absolute Universe, that is still intact. And while Joe Mullen is Green Lantern, she's also a Green Lantern who somewhat ignores the yellow color weakness. And this is also a world that is a bit more of a cosmic horror vibe. Almost, not in the strictest sense, but there's definitely some cosmic horror isms, almost like eldritch horror isms, like on a smaller scale. We have a Abin Sur in this universe who, for those who don't know, Abin Sur is who gives Hal Jordan the Green Lantern ring in Prime Earth and New Earth continuity. In this particular universe, he almost looks more like if Majin Buu ate Gore the God Butcher, and he's kind of sinister looking, but there's definitely something more to him than what he looks like. We also get to meet characters like Hector Hammond, who under normal circumstances is one of Green Lantern's greatest foes, and we also get to meet characters like Carol Ferris, who under normal circumstances is Star Sapphire, a former villain turned hero and now member of the Justice League Unlimited. But in this universe, she's just an assistant to Hector Hammond. There is no Ferris Air, there's no piloting or anything of that nature. Hal Jordan isn't even a part of the military in this universe, or at least if he is, he's former military. He is a toy salesman, or as he would say, collectible figure salesman. Meanwhile, John Stewart is an architect, Joe Mullen is a cop. In this particular universe. Even Guy Gardner, also a sheriff. So we get to see all these different characters and even some hints and nods to other characters that are a part of the universe, and it's all really cool and interesting. It's definitely doing some very different things with Green Lantern than what you might expect, and I'm here for it. Next up is going to be Absolute Flash. Now, this is another book that I'm really fond of because it's also giving us a hero that's a little bit different from everyone else. All the other heroes in the Absolute Universe are good and grown-ass people, but in this particular case, Wally West is not grown. He is the youngest hero of the Absolute Universe, at least as far as one who has his own comic, and he's 15 years old, and he just suddenly has the Speed Force. And the Speed Force is, I'm not gonna say like incredibly different than what we're used to, but in this particular instance, when Wally gains the power, he doesn't know how to use it. So he's constantly running when he doesn't want to, moving fast when he doesn't want to, at least at first. And this is also a world where the rogues that we typically associate with Flash, characters like Captain Cold or Heatwave or Golden Glider, Captain Boomerang, so on and so forth, these characters are very different than what we might be used to. While some of them are actual experiments that have gotten out, others are part of a military black op group that works for a shady government op, and it's kind of wild how it all comes together. And there's even other characters you might be more familiar with, like Gorilla Grodd, who in this case is less of a Gorilla Grodd and more of a friendly Grodd of all of the books. Like, not to say that none of them have any heart. I think Wonder Woman probably has more heart than most of them, but like when I'm talking about heart, I'm talking about like those really warm, hopeful moments. Wally West in Absolute Flash definitely is pretty close to Wonder Woman in that regard. Especially for a universe where everything is supposed to be kind of, I'm not gonna say grimdark, but not exactly happy either. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the Absolute Universe, and Wally is encountering other characters like Linda Park, also getting to meet the Elongated Man and Sue Dibney. Like, he's getting to meet all these interesting characters that are tangential to the Flash universe. and it's all pretty neat. I like it. Like, I would say probably if there's any one thing that I think is probably going to throw people for a loop is if you're just not as familiar with a character like Wally West, I can see where there might be a little bit of barrier for entry for you here, but I feel like Wally's one of those flashes that everyone probably knows Wally West better than Barry, they just don't realize it. So yeah, I think if you really want to get to know Wally West, this is a pretty cool way to get to know him, even though it's not in the main continuity. Last up is going to be Martian Manhunter. This is a book that is kind of funny to me. Martian Manhunter is easily the most different of all of the Absolute comics. Like, and I'm not just talking about in terms of tone, but also in terms of character. You could look at books like Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, even Green Lantern and Flash. You could make a very strong case for these characters not being all that terribly different from their main continuity counterparts. You can't say that with Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is a very, very different title. This focuses on a guy by the name of John Jones, similar to Prime Earth continuity, only not spelled funny, but this is an actual human John Jones, who is an FBI agent, and he winds up running afoul of a guy who is a mad bomber that takes out everyone around him, except John has been possessed by this entity who refers to himself as the Martian. Now, that's where things get really interesting here, because John Jones isn't the Martian. The Martian and John Jones are two completely separate entities. And this comic kind of plays on old continuity and current continuity and kind of blends some things together, remixes it all up to create the stew that we have that is Martian Manhunter in the Absolute universe. And very similar to what you might expect if you're familiar with Martian Manhunter more from Prime Earth continuity, yeah, he has a lot of the same powers and abilities. He is telepathic, or at least John is telepathic because the Martian inside of him is telepathic. He can also turn intangible and go through stuff. He can also predict the future on some level. He can kind of sense what, is going on, the auras around other people. That's why there's all like the crazy colors that are always popping off in this book. It's technically him reading people's minds, but it almost looks like more like he's smelling them in some instances, which is, another story altogether. The whole vibe really with this book, I don't want to call it a noir story because it's not really, but I mean, it is a detective story. Maybe not quite as much noir as it is detective. And the ultimate, big bad, or at least, the thing that they are looking out for is the White Martian, and trying to figure out exactly why the White Martian is trying to plunge Middleton into darkness. Why is this happening? And more importantly, how do they stop the White Martian if they can even find it? That's effectively my primer to get you warmed up for the Absolute universe and get you ready in case you're wondering whether you should dive into it. Whether you go to your local comic shop, or if you do, as I said earlier, go to Global Comics, go to the app or the website. They'll have plenty of the Absolute line on there by the time this video goes live. If you haven't done so already, go check out Global Comics. You can read a metric ton of DC Comics on that app. Click the link in the description below, sign up for an unlimited membership, and use my promo code GCX Blerd Without Fear, and you will get $10 off your first 1-year subscription. And getting that unlimited subscription will allow you to read just about everything on the app, so I highly recommend go do that. Also, if you haven't done so already, if you're still here, hit that like button, because if you got to this point, you like the video. Don't lie to yourself. Hit that like button, help a brother out, and also hit that subscribe button, tap that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on anything. Also, let me know what you think about all the Absolute comics down in the comments below. Keep it plus ultra. Until next time, we out of here. Peace.